It's an uncomfortable thing. And I talk about it so that I can stop being uncomfortable about it. It was not the appointment that I was looking for. It was actually worse than the worst case scenario, but it's what I needed. 100% what I needed. And this is the story about how I got started thinking about weight loss surgery. So if you're like me, you've struggled with your weight. Some of your life, most of your life, maybe all your life. So my name is Ken. I mean, who cares, right? I go by Bite Sized on YouTube and on TikTok. It's very nice to meet you if we haven't met already. In 2014, I weighed 525 pounds. And this is the story about how I got started thinking about weight loss surgery. Yeah, I just didn't understand it. I was always the big kid. I was always the fat friend, the fat sibling, the biggest person in the room. Like, that was always who I was. Sometimes, it came in handy, but 98% of the other time, I was miserable. Or at least in denial about being miserable. So I'm in college, and I finally got, really good health insurance. So I decided that I should probably go get checked out and go see a doctor. So I go to the doctor's office and they're like, oh, let's get a vitals on you. And the nurse takes the blood pressure cuff and, they start to, squeeze it. And there was always this thing that they would do. They would take my vital signs and then they would make this kind of sound, like this, shock, this audible, oh, he actually has pretty low blood pressure, which always translated to me that yeah, see, I'm actually healthy, believe it or not. It was one of those weird denial exercises I would do. So I would have these things that I would say to myself that would make me feel a little bit better about where I was with my weight. I would go, well, at least I'm not like those people on My 600-Pound Life, bedridden, can't move, I can actually get around, make myself feel a little bit better. So the nurse finishes taking my blood pressure and then she goes, okay, why don't we get a weight on you? I didn't think that they would be able to do it. I was like, oh, it'll probably be one of those ones where you sort of balance the thing and then, it gives you your weight. That's not what they had. So I walked down this hallway. Standing in this corner is this white piece of machinery. It had two handles on the side and an LCD screen. It just looked legit. And I was like, oh no, that's gonna get the weight on me. The jig might be up. So I get on this machine and then it starts to weigh you. And I remember it flashed, 110, 150, 200, 250, 275, 325, 415, and it just kept going up. And I was like, no. When it got past 415, I was like, this has to be a mistake. I told the nurse and the doctor that I weighed 300 pounds. I sort of thought that that was the ballpark, but that number kept going up and up and up until finally it stopped and it chimed and it flashed on the screen and it said 525. And I remember feeling devastated because, as you know, your weight can be such a shameful thing because it is like a report card that you wear on your forehead. You're telling the world, this is something that I clearly don't have a handle on. I'm different from everybody else, and I don't know why. And at least that's how it was with me. I remember I was like, I should leave. I was embarrassed. I was really, really embarrassed. I was really worried about what the doctor would say. I didn't knowingly lied, but I was carrying on a lie. So I just sort of felt like there was just nothing I could do or nothing I could say. So I remember the doctor came in. She was actually really, really kind. She introduced herself. She asked how I was, and she asked me about myself and where I was in my life. And I told her that I was in college and I was about to get married. And then somewhere in the conversation, I remember saying, "What are your goals in life?" And If I think really hard, I really don't ever remember somebody asking me that ever. And I was and I didn't really have an answer because it just felt like such a big, broad question. And she goes, well, you're getting married, right? So I'm assuming that you guys want kids. And I was like, yes, of course. And then she asked me, and do you want to be around for them? And I remember getting a little choked up thinking about it. I could just feel that quiver. Do I want to be around for them? My parents weren't around much. And later on in life, I think I felt that absence more. So having a doctor looking me in the eye, talking to me very openly, but also kind, like there was really no room to be like, how dare you? Like it was more like a conversation that I couldn't just escape from. So she got me with that question, and then she goes, well, not only just like being around, long term, you should, but what about the quality of life? And that's something I hadn't really considered, because I was doing this sort of blinders act. Well, I go to school and I have a job. I actually have 3 jobs, and I'm super busy, and I drive and I get around, and I'm moving and I'm shaking and I'm getting stuff done, and I considered myself active. I was a functional obese person. But then we started kind of diving a little bit further. She's like, do you go outside? Do you enjoy exercise? And I was like, well, who enjoys exercise? It's like, who enjoys homework? And she's like, no, sure, that's fair. She's like, but do you like to travel? No, I don't. I don't. And then she was like, do you think that that's because you have no interest in it? She's like, are you comfortable on airplanes? And I remember thinking, I hadn't been on an airplane in 13 years at that point. But up until that point, I always liked to fly. That was something I liked to do as a kid. And she was like, what about, sitting down, standing up, walking long distances, keeping up with a group. And she just went down this list of very basic things. And I remember thinking wow, I avoid those like the plague. The idea of going to the beach or going for a hike or walking with my friends, I would just do this sort of like disappearing act. I would come up with excuses and just these very convenient things of why I'd be MIA or why I had to skip something, or I would catch them after they were done. And then she said, doesn't that ever get lonely? And I remember being like, wow, yeah, it does. It absolutely does. And I think what made it worse was that at the time, I had this person that I was marrying. I was isolating her. We weren't going out and doing things and being places. And she was kind of going along with my lifestyle because her partner didn't do anything or didn't go anywhere. And that got to me, because it's one thing for me to be in this body, to be in this life, and suffer through it and just try to make the best of it. Realizing that I might be impacting somebody else as a result of it, that didn't sit well with me. And it made me really scared, because it wasn't a good time, if I'm being honest. It wasn't a good existence. And I think I used excuses like, oh, I'm busy, oh, I'm a student, oh, I'm just trying to make things work, to just avoid those things. So then the doctor grabbed a pamphlet and she passed it to me, and she asked me if I knew anything about weight loss surgery. And I didn't think that was even on the table for me. But I thought about it, and I'm sitting in this office and I'm vulnerable. I just feel like she can just see right through me. I would have done anything in that moment to feel better, because as promising or as exciting as the prospect of weight loss surgery sounded, I was very destroyed by this appointment. Just embarrassed, it was not the appointment that I was looking for. It was actually worse than the worst case scenario, in my opinion. But it's what I needed. 100% what I needed. And if that hadn't taken place by that woman, by that doctor, in the way that it had, I don't know if I would be here today. And I can honestly say that. This process, this procedure, it sent my life in a completely different direction. A better direction. It opens so much to you. You feel like the world around you, you feel like an alien in a world that's not built for you. There's something so demeaning about living in a world that you feel too big for. Sitting in a booth or going upstairs or being outside. Being outside was such a pain in the ass to me. I didn't understand why people enjoyed it. Why be out in the sun? It's uncomfortable, you sweat, it just makes you smell. It just wasn't a good existence. But the thing is it was the only existence that I knew. I didn't know that there was anything better. I was never comfortable. I was always a big kid. So I didn't understand that by going on a weight loss journey and losing 300 pounds, that the world's a very different place when you feel like you fit into it better. And that sounds weird. Like there's something that sounds like negative about that, but I promise you, like, I don't mean it in like a negative way. Like, I mean it in the most, like, it's such a wonderful thing to feel comfortable in the world. Like, I wouldn't say I was living my life on hard mode, but it certainly wasn't easy mode either. I feel like there's I feel like I have like more speed in life. That things that appear to be harder or more stressful, they seem like less so to me, just because like everything was hard. Everything was hard. Getting in out of bed, tying my shoes, like getting dressed, taking a shower, getting in the car, like that was a lot of work for me. And I didn't realize it at the time. Like I really wasn't being like honest about it. I think a lot of people live their lives that way. Like whatever the issue or issues are with your weight, whether it's some sort of trauma, whether it's, your lifestyle, your environment, whether it's just like, you're in a stressful situation, a stressful life, and you're eating to cope. Like whatever the reasons are, once you get a handle on that or start to work on it, start to put things back together and fix things around you, like you really do feel like a weight off your shoulders. Like losing the first 100 pounds was so empowering to me. This is before surgery, mind you. Just because I could say I lost 100 pounds. And it just made me want to keep going. I don't think for people like me that a weight loss journey is ever over. Like it's something that you keep working at. And this is the next step in my process, is talking about mine, trying to connect with others that have been there or are there. I want to be like a kind of like a sign of hope. Like when I was looking into this after my doctor's appointment, I immediately, jumped online, I started Googling, and there was nothing about this. There's a lot more like stuff on it now, but even now, like there's not many men on here talking about their experience. It's an uncomfortable thing. And I talk about it so that I can stop being uncomfortable about it. And I also want to connect with that person that was just like me, that wanted to know that it would get better, that you could go through a process like this, get to the end of it, and feel good. That's all I wanted to know. Because when you look for something and you see no evidence that it can be done, your mind goes in two directions. Either I will be the first one to do this and that will be awesome, or it's impossible and no one can do it. And in terms of your weight, in terms of your health, that's a scary prospect, because the fear in my head was people die before they get a handle on it, and I didn't want that. But yeah, now I'm 10 years post-op. I'm so grateful for that doctor's appointment, and yeah, it took a lot to get here, but man, I'm so glad I am. So if any of that resonated with you, if you can relate, or you feel like, you're off your gourd, dude, and, you're the only one that feels like that, talk to me, leave a comment, let's have a conversation. Like I'm here, like I'm a sympathetic ear. And if you had a feeling about your weight, I've probably had it too. And I would love to hear from you. I hope this story helps if you're considering weight loss surgery. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to this channel just so that I know that you guys are out there. And I love to know that this is helpful for people. Or, hey buddy, thanks for being there. Until next time, talk to you soon. Oh, and if you'd actually like to hear about my actual surgery experience, the video, I'll leave a link for the video, I think, like around this thing. Sorry, I know this is like a cliche YouTube thing, but I'm doing it. So it's like right here, or maybe here, or, somewhere. But yeah, later guys.